Please be seated. I remember the first time I drove up to camp, up in Garberville. After doing Sunday morning service during middle weekend, holding down the fort, schlepping up 4 hours drive up into Garberville. Of course, you get through the winding roads, and you get into the redwoods, and you start to relax a little bit, and you're out of the craziness of the traffic of 101 through Sonoma and areas like that. And finally, there it is, the sign to Frog Camp. You drive down and around a couple turns, and you come to the main camp. Now, at the very front entrance there, when you get into camp, there's a big sign on a sawhorse. You know what that sign says? Politics prohibited. I had the same reaction. Who here knows of a lot of good conversations in politics where there wasn't a lot of negativity or slander or malice or wrath? So, like any good rule, it wasn't always there, but was put there for a reason after something happened. My guess is there was a bit of a few kerfuffles around political conversations that led to the idea that, you know what? In order to preserve the peace of camp, we are going to exclude political discussion from camp. Probably a smart move because we aren't very good at political discourse, particularly when we're talking with people with whom we disagree. Now, who right now thinks that public discourse is at a really good place of constructive and kind gestures across the aisle? Yeah, me too. And that's where we're in a relatively healthy community with good wealth in our broader United States and relative stability politically. At least we're not afraid of being attacked or killed or executed or martyred. That was not the case for the church in Ephesus. By the point that this epistle gets written, the Jewish sect that followed Jesus as the Anointed One has now, because of the fact that most people did not accept the idea that Jesus was the Anointed One because he didn't usher in what most people were looking for in messianic hopes, they were asked to leave the synagogues, not because they believed that Jesus was the Anointed, but because they called him Lord, Savior, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Son of God, Savior, Prince of Peace. Now, you've probably heard me say this before, but who else had those titles in Rome? The Emperor Caesar. So you can imagine what would happen if someone claimed that Caesar was not those things, but this peasant from Palestine. That was considered treason. Again, Jesus was executed by Rome because they perceived that he was committing treason and attempting to overthrow through revolutionary means. So, by this point, you've already got enough trouble with Rome coming down on the Jewish people because they are a strong people that refuse to be stamped down. Under that realm, the Jesus movement was protected, but when they were kicked out, they were on their own. And so they were being persecuted constantly. Their lives were in danger every day for claiming Jesus to be their Anointed One, their King, their Lord. And on top of that, you have the Jewish followers of Jesus in that community, and then you have the non-Jewish followers in that community. One of the big debates that comes up over and over again in the New Testament epistles is whether or not non-Jews should be circumcised. It's sort of like, all right, you're in camp, but you can come on the flight to the right place. But if you're not circumcised, you're in coach. The circumcised people are the ones that are up in business class and first class, that sort of thing. So there was a stratification there. Who thinks there might have been a little bit of conflict because of that? Yeah. Who here likes it when they're treated like second-class citizens? So you have dire persecution. You have two conflicting understandings of what it means to be full members of the family of Jesus going on in this little community, still trying to figure out who they are. Talk about transition. So the author here is asking a very tall order in today's readings. Be kind-hearted. Forgive one another. Speak truth, because we are neighbors. Do let go of bitterness, wrath, malice, anger. Whoever has experienced holding a grudge? You don't have to raise your hands, but I know I have. Has that grudge ever fully served us? It harms us. Who here has had someone hold a grudge against them? Does that help the relationship? No. Someone yelling at you, cutting you down, insulting you, and saying horrible things about you because they think you're wrong on something. Has that ever changed your mind on something? Has it ever encouraged you to want to be a better person? No. As I said earlier this summer, we are called to be a source of God's healing in a world that is horribly divided and divisive. In a time where people react when they shout back and forth, when you get that good warm, fuzzy feeling inside at slapping somebody down on Facebook or insulting someone you disagree with or getting into an argument with someone. It divides us. It continues to perpetuate what the people in Ephesus were struggling with. It's funny how 2,000 years' time, we continue to struggle with these things. Well, we are called to be healers in the world, both inside this building and outside. We are called to go out and share and be witness to the fragrant offering and sacrifice that Jesus gave to God. What was that sacrifice? Life. And why did he sacrifice that life? For love. Yes. Through that love, all the sins that we commit are overcome. Through that kindness, the anger that drives us to do things wrong is given its proper, holy, and acceptable place. It is okay to be angry. It is okay to be furious. In fact, if you're not furious about what's wrong with the world, you're not really engaging with it. But if we act on that anger to harm others, to stifle, we negate what that righteous anger was pointing to. It's funneling that anger, transmuting it into something that shares love in the world. To take that energy and point it towards what God is calling us to in the world. That is what the author of the book of Ephesians was trying to accomplish in his community, and what we are called to today. But now, is the fullness of love ever simply one-sided? No. Love must always be mutual. It's not enough to do these things. The only way we can truly achieve the beloved community that we are being called into is if we are willing together to show that kindness together, to forgive the wrongs that have been done to us, not to excuse them, but to seek to bring transformation in a phrase that I was taught years ago called loving one another into a new way of being. This is what we are called in the world to do. This is what we struggle with every day. It's choosing to be a source of love, of healing, of forgiveness in a world that may not always see that as the way to be. So hopefully, someday we will come to a point where maybe we don't need to have a sign that says politics prohibited. Because we are so committed to that prime directive of God's love, to the unity in our diversity, that we are never going to let our anger or disagreements so overwhelm us that we cannot reach across the aisle and say, "The peace of God be with you." May we take that peace, that love, that healing, that forgiveness, that grace that we find in this community and give that to those around us moving forward. Amen.